Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we are back for our second show of the week as we look ahead to Newcastle United to come at St James's Park. I'm delighted to say that we're joined by a returning regular panelist here on Last Word on Spurs. If you're listening for the very first time, where have you been? We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're of course on X. We are on Instagram, we are on Facebook too, and this will predominantly be just for our watching audience that we are aware that there has been an issue with relation to YouTube lives in this last, 24 hours. So for those that are trying to watch us and attempt to watch us, you may be able to do that on Facebook, you may be able to do that on Insta as well, Twitch, but just not via YouTube as things stands. Or I can see some messages flurrying through again. Thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to get involved. I'm joined by, three great returning guests to the show. So I said this man back alongside us. The wonderful Ricky Norwood is back for the run-in. Ricks, how are you, my man? Love to have you join us. You well?
I am good, my friend. I am so happy to be back on Last Word on Spurs. It's been a while. And yeah, bro, we're in a good vein of form, so I can't wait to jump in.
Bless you, mate. Always a pleasure. Love to see your dulcet tones back, and I have to say, seeing you makes me smile. It does. Joining Ricks alongside us, we've got the wonderful Talia, Coren, Backtail. Love to see you back on. It's been a mad day for you, we know. So thank you for finding the time for us as always.
You are welcome. Always happy to be back. And yeah, excited to chat about Newcastle. Hoping for a better game than last season.
Aren't we all? I tell you, aren't we all? And look, finally, last but not least, we've got this man who normally is home and away. He's normally up there, obviously up the tune. Let's hope he's up for a better result this time around. We've got the wonderful George Achilliea back. George, how are you? Love to see you join us again. You well?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me back on. And yes, I will be there Saturday. Yes, I was there last year. And I'm just praying a completely different result. But yeah, I'm happy to be talking about Spurs again.
Aren't we all? Look, we laughed and joked in the green room that, we're still on the same manager, which is something, given I think it was on our third one at the point of going to St James's Park. So, look, it can only be good vibes at the moment. And, look, again, I think it's really interesting, the vibe around Spurs, because I think, you can't argue progress has definitely been made with Tottenham. But I think, again, it's just been the nature of it. And Ange just said this, it's been such a stop-start season that we've had so many breaks in between. And, again, we know we've got that coming up again. And for some, it's what's known as a dreaded April. Lee McQueen won't let me say that. He'll say that's the battle of April to come and we should be looking forward to it. But look, Ricks, I want to open up with you because for those that have listened, watched Last Word on Spurs over the last 6-7 years, you are one of the most, if not the most positive guys that come onto the show, give us optimism, give us that always kind of everyday Sunday rousing speech that you're loved for on this show. And look, when you look at the reality of progress for Tottenham, they've won 2 more games than they have at this stage last season. They've drawn 1 more. They've lost 3 fewer. That's all whilst implementing a new style of play, of course, a new manager, losing the club's highest ever goal scorer along the way. Ricks, can you feel and can you see the progress that Spurs are making?
Oh, absolutely, bro. Absolutely. I've been, kind of really happy and kind of blown away with how much we've turned this ship around, Not only the summer and Harry Kane, like you say, but like the end of last season. Like you say, we had 3 managers by that point. I really felt that we was a sinking ship and I didn't know where we was going to go. And when the name Ange Postecoglou turned up, I was like, nah, this guy is not the one. Do you know what I mean? I think I was one of those fans that was calling for Pochettino to come back. I thought he was the only one that could come back and fix it. But look how this guy's come in and just turned the whole place around from top to bottom. The energy, the optimism. We've got drive. We've got passion. We have got a vision. We've got a style of play. We know where we're going. We know where we're heading for good, bad, or ugly. And, little by little bit, the squad has been changed. There's been a turnover. We've got out some of the players that some say had been there too long, and some would definitely say that they didn't fit Postecoglou's system. So we've changed a lot of the playing staff. We've changed our way of play. We've changed our philosophy, although we've gone back to what we're known for, basically. And we're playing some good football. We're competing out there. We've had such a bumpy season, like you said there, not just the schedule, but like injuries, suspensions, international tournaments. international friendlies that were going on. You know, there's been so many stop-starts. It's been hard to build up a bit of momentum, and we've had some serious injuries, and not just been niggles. But right now, they're coming together. Right now, they're building, and right now you can see that they want it. You know what I mean? They want it. There was a interview that came out of Madison after the game where they were speaking to him about the top four and having a kind of a say in the title race, and he was upset by that notion. Because he wanted to be involved in the title race, and that's where I want my team to be. Do you know what I mean? I want him to be disappointed with fourth. I want him to strive for the highest of the highs, and we're on that road. You know, we've got so many good things to be thankful for right now, because I don't know where Tottenham was going for a couple of seasons. You know, after Poch, I really didn't know which direction we was going in. I always backed the manager that was there, and I always backed the new regime, even if it didn't feel right to me. I backed it, and it wasn't successful. It didn't go the way that we wanted it to do. But right now, it feels so good. You know, not only are we buying the right players at the right prices, but we're buying them because the manager demands character. You know, he demands heart. He demands honesty. His quote about, you know, being in the Champions League and buying Champions League players, he said, I don't want them. If that's what they want, the boss said, I don't want them. I want players that want to play for Tottenham. And how many times have we, us fans, been on this show and we spoke about players like that? We spoke about wanting players that want to be there, that want to wear the shirt, that want to go out there and fight this fight, you know, and kind of give everything to the cause. And we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. And right now, yes, it's going to be a tough April. But I'm with Lee McQueen. It's up for the battle, and I think that Tottenham have had a great record against the top six so far, and they always rise to the challenge. They know their big games coming up, and I feel that they're all going to be up for the fight. I feel that they're all going to be putting their best foot forward, and you know, I think it's exciting times ahead, and we are still in the infancy of this Ange Postecoglou era. So, like, hold on for a bumpy ride, but it's definitely going to be exciting, and I think we're going to be successful at the end of it.
Ricks, I don't know where we go after a speech like that. You know, we need that at the end, not at the bloody beginning. You absolute legend. This is why this guy this guy is one of British finest actors, right? Please go and sign him up. Please do. I'm just imagining.
Thanks for having us on. We're
going to go now.
See you next week.
See you next week after we've just come back from a Newcastle thrashing. Not. Now, let me come over to you. Look, Spurs did return to winning ways, of course, on Sunday with that 3-1 victory over Nottingham Forest. That result saw Ange Postecoglou's Spurs move into fourth after Villa could only manage a 3-3 draw at Brentford on the Saturday. Now, as things stand, we know Spurs and Villa are both tied on 60 points. But Spurs' superior goal difference has seen them take the lead in the race for fourth. And, you know, with relation to Spurs, they're in a position this weekend where they could further enhance that. Of course, we've got Aston Villa going away to Arsenal in, obviously, that corresponding game for them. But again, when you look at the facts here, Tal, you know, despite moving into the top four places as well with Tottenham, they've already matched their points tally of 22-23 season with 60. We're still 7 games still to play. So you have the same mindset as Rick, that there's still a lot of progress being made here, and maybe don't want to cast aspersions, but because of some other clubs that are in and around us and what they're doing at the moment is maybe the reason why we are a little bit, not all of us, some are not enjoying it as much as we maybe should do. Does that make sense, Tal?
Kind of, not really, but we'll give it a go. I mean, I think it's hard not to agree with Rick, right? I mean, everything that he said is pretty much bang on. I think we're just in this weird era, right? Like, where we've just come through so many managers and so much change. And I think everyone feels quite settled. And that's, I think, been a feeling that none of us have really experienced for a long time, or at least since Poch came in. It's this feeling that we're about to go on a journey and it's going to be a good one, or it feels really optimistic and that we're on the right path. And I think that's a really nice place to be. I think it's been a funny season because we did start so incredibly strong. And I think all of us, you know, remember the beginning of this season, it was, oh, if we get, you know, 7th, we'll be lucky. And all of this and the stupid pundits and all their terrible predictions. And we came in and were absolutely bossing it pretty much up until Christmas. So I think there was so much high that the small blips and the stuff that we've been on have felt like really low lows, because that's what you get in seasons like this, where you jump on Lee's crazy train and everything else, and you're like, oh my God, it's happening, what's happening? Then you go on that little bout of losses and, you get all of these injuries and you're like, what could have been? And it always feels like that, doesn't it? I think especially when you're onto something good, you're just a little bit like, oh, okay. But I think we've kind of plateaued out of that now. And I don't think we're really experiencing like a super high or a low. I think we're in this place where we've got a really good opportunity to finish, way ahead of where we originally expected. We've got, more than anything, a squad that look like they are so united, love playing together. And we're just building something really great. And I know we see it in, again, blips at the moment. We have not experienced 90 minutes of handball and seeing all this cool stuff. We're really getting 20-minute periods of fantastic football where everyone's loving it and you feel like we could score 12 goals. And then going through a period where we just think, how is this the same group of players that were there 2 minutes ago? Like,
such a great analogy.
And it's so strange. It's such a weird thing to watch consistently, because I just think we really know and understand the potential and can see where we're going, and that's great. But it's equally as frustrating when you're not putting that in for a full 90 minutes. And we've made these silly mistakes and cost us, and we've drawn or we've lost, and you just think think of where we are now. And if we hadn't have done those small things or conceded that one goal or did X, Y, or Z, where we would be. But I think, from a rational perspective, that's fine. We're really early into this journey and that's cool. I think ultimately everyone is kind of on the same page, I think, where they're backing Ange. They want to see Ange be back this summer. We're excited about what's going to happen next season, where he's got the players that he wants and brings in those players. We see our younger kids develop, the exciting talents that we've got, like Mickey, who I'm basically in love with at this point, who is just an 11 out of 10 player. But it's just exciting, I think. I'm not that annoyed about having to renew my season ticket soon. That's how I feel. Grab my money, but I'm not that mad about it.
Yeah.
I'm more than anything excited, I think. It's a good place. I hope we finish this season strong. I obviously hope scumbags down the road bottle it to high heavens and end up very...
We went there 13 minutes and we went there. Yeah.
Not to, but ultimately, I think we're in a decent position. We've got some hard fixtures, some very winnable ones, but all you can do is take it game by game. And I think that's what the players that have had recent interviews out there keep saying as well. For them, it's like, we're not in the title race. I want to be in it. We're not there yet, but all we can do is win game by game and see where we get to. So exciting things, positive thoughts, small frustrations, but I don't think it's anything that can't and won't be ironed out, which is good.
I mean, look, likewise to Rick's, Tal's been around here for 6-7 years. So when Tal's saying it's going well, it's pretty much going well. I've got to say that. Veteran. I tell you, veterans. George Achilliea is also a veteran. He's been here. He was in the very early days of this show on an audio basis. George, look, Spurs, 11 points above United, 16 points above Chelsea, as a very kind listener of the show here, King Hodderman viewer, points out. And, it's interesting because Rick's very much kindly must have read my script beforehand, because I wanted to kind of bring into the fact what James Madison did say during this week. And that's the fact that for him, he says it's non-negotiable for Tottenham to now be in a position where they don't qualify for the Champions League. And in his mind, he's targeting a title push next season. He went on to say that although the manager is insisting he couldn't care less about a top four finish, he says from his perspective, I get the manager not want to talk about it, but I'm not going to lie to your face and say that we don't think about it as players. We want to be in the Champions League. This club needs to be in the Champions League. It's a non-negotiable. That's the feeling around the club. And, I think although he's saying from his perspective, he doesn't care about the title race, I want to know how you're feeling, George, about the club at the moment, given the fact, as Tal very eloquently pointed out there, we had that unbelievable 9-10 game run where at the start of the season, we had Lee McQueen on there saying, could we? Then we had a 4-game run saying, we can't. And it's almost kind of balanced itself out through the course of the season. So how do you feel, George, being there week in, week out, home and away, about your current mood on the football club?
I'm loving it all, and I think Ange is probably the biggest factor of it by a mile. And I'm absolutely loving his press conferences at the moment, because you're seeing the journalists ask the exact same questions every week about top four, and he's just instantly shutting them down, saying, no, don't care, we're aiming for the title, which I think what he's doing subtly, which I like compared to the previous managers, is trying to change the narrative around Spurs. You even saw with Mourinho or Conte, if they didn't get the players they wanted, they're almost saying in the press conferences, well, this is what I'm dealing with at this club. I'm not going to be able to spend the money like I did at previous. And to be fair, to a degree, I think Pochettino was saying the same sort of thing before he got sacked. It was sort of a case of, well, this is what I have to deal with. We're not competing with them, and so on and so forth. Whereas to me, Ange doesn't really seem to be making that excuse. He's more trying to get the point across that no, even though we are Tottenham and we have this whole thing about not winning trophies, I'm changing that narrative. We're going to be fighting for the title next year. I don't like. That's why he's not saying that he cares about the top four race and so on and so forth. So I just love his whole mentality, and he's sort of playing the long game with it all, trying to put us in that position where if he's saying that in public for the media to see, for the fans to see, then no doubt the players are hearing that as well from him every single day in the training ground. So that sort of is what I think of when I hear Madison's response about wanting to be in that title push and saying that Spurs should be there as well. It shows that he's really getting the message across to these players that we will be fighting there next year. Not, oh, we could do if we do this, that, and the other. No, we will, which is what I love about him. Like I haven't had that feeling for Lord knows how long. So yeah, I'm really excited about that, and I think we've just seemed to hit everything at the right time, right? I think Spurs aren't renowned for spending massive money on one player. That's always been the case, but football in the last, let's call it 4 years or so, has changed massively with the likes of Brentford and Brighton pushing on massively with the data-driven approach. Liverpool as well have done the same sort of thing. And I think it almost falls into our hand where we're actually able to change the whole backroom staff, utilize that method. And that means we don't have to spend 100 million on one player to find a gem. Van der Ven's a perfect example of that. No one had a clue who he was beforehand. And even then, I think Tapsoba was supposed to be our number one target that people were saying we should get, was a little bit more expensive, and everyone thought it was the cheaper option. Everyone thought Vicario was the cheaper option. I just think everything's just falling into place nicely. That we've got a manager that wants to work with unknown players, so to speak. The club probably don't want to spend a crazy amount of money on a single player anyway, and we're playing great football. So to me, there's nothing we can complain about right now, and just hopefully build on for next year. And in fact, that bad run earlier in November, December, whenever it was, probably just signifies to the board that, hold on, we actually do need to build a squad, not just the first team, because if we've got Champions League, we're going to need extra players to come in. We can't just rely on a first 11, sort of like we did under Poch. So there's so much to look forward to. I can't complain whatsoever.
It's a lovely segue, George, to my kind of next point there, because George has kind of brought up where I wanted to go really next. He talks about the squad. Look, we are recording on a Champions League week. We'd all love to be, of course, I think, playing in the Champions League or in some European football. Of course, with Spurs and what they have done so far this season under Ange, it is now highly likely Spurs are going to be in some form of European football. I just wonder, Rix, when you look at some of the games that have taken place over the course of this week, do you feel Spurs as a club are really well equipped for the Champions League? Or do you feel it is going to need, as George says there, maybe some areas of real investment in the summer to get Spurs ready for a Champions League season? Because Ange has been very dismissive of even talking about the top four. And I've actually stopped asking the question to the guests on Last Word on Spurs about, do you want a top four finish? On the basis that Ange has made that fairly redundant now. So I just want to go along the lines really and ask you how you feel watching Champions League football, whether you feel we're ready for that, if that's what it is to be.
We will be ready for it. We will be ready for it. Ange doesn't want to just take part. He wants to go there and challenge. He wants to go there to win. And that's the Champions League as well as the Premier League, as well as the Carabao Cup, as well as the FA Cup. He wants a squad that can challenge every single competition. He wants to be able to rotate and then not be a massive drop-off. He wants everybody to be playing the same way. He wants to be able to use those and utilize those 5 subs to his benefit, to be able to push forward, to be able to change the game. You know, and he will make that happen. Look at our signings that we've made recently, as Georgie was saying there. You know, Vicario, great example. You know, the me included, the fans were all on Raya's case, and we thought that spending, what was it, 15, 18 million or something like that on Vicario was the cheaper option again. And look how that's worked out. Same with your doggy. Same with Mickey van der Ven. You know, we've done it throughout, and then we spend some money on someone like Pedro Porro. You know, we're doing the things, and we're making the right choices at the right price for the right player. Another one was Gvardiol, right? We were looking to get Gvardiol the season before, and then it was touted 70, 80, 90 mil for Gvardiol. Well, we spent half of that money and went and got Mickey van der Ven, and look at what a player we've got right here, right now. So they are making the changes. They're willing to take the hit. You know, you've seen that with Perisic. Yes, he had an injury, but they let him go pretty much on loan and on a free. Same with Eric Dyer. You know, so they're changing up the squad. There's been rumours about them taking a hit for Brian Hill this summer as well, and they're working on this squad, and they're going to make that happen. And with Lange there and the data-driven team and Paratici working in the background, but they're all working in harmony with Ange Postecoglou and the style of player and the character of player that we need to bring in. I have every faith that they're going to make it happen. Now, are there going to be one or two shortcomings? Probably, because we've never been satisfied as fans or as the coach and the manager or as the club been 100% satisfied with the squad that we have at the end of a transfer window. But I have 100% faith that they'll get to like 98%. Do you know what I mean? Or, you know, there might be one or two that are not doing it, but there'll be the majority of them that are there to go and do the job that we can rely on. You know, you've seen that the fact that he utilised Davies and Emerson Royale as centre backs during this bumpy, crazy train of a season, and we still came out with results, and we still came out with the same way of play, says to me that we're looking in the right direction, you know, and we're looking at the right players for the project, not just, like I say, Champions League, but for the Premier League. And we don't want to just be in it. We don't want to just kind of be there for a nice day out and kind of go to visit Madrid and kind of go, oh, we didn't get a result, but it was a nice day out. We want to go there to challenge. We want to get results. We want to come away and be in the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, the finals of the Champions League. We want to go there and upset some people and upset that apple cart. And the biggest thing to me is that we do not worry about the opposition. We let the opposition worry about us. And that's a beautiful place to be in right now, because the last couple of seasons, that's all we've done, you know? So I have every faith that when we get into the Champions League, and I said when, yes, I did say it, that we will prepare properly and we'll get our squad together, and they will make the sufficient signings to keep us pushing and keep us moving forward.
Great points there, Rick. I think it's interesting, the one point you mentioned there, which actually Ange just said himself, that, you know, there's been a real emphasis, as the players have said this as well, about actually more about the style of Spurs' play rather than the focus on the opposition, which I think is really, really telling, because maybe in the past, I mean, again, the likes of definitely under Jose, there was that element where we'd be so fixated about what the opposition was doing, we actually would forget about what we were meant to do as a team, as a club, as a squad. So I really take up on those points you say there. But Tal, you made a great point, I thought, in your opening line when you come on the show, and it was that Spurs have got this ability to have an unbelievable period of 20 minutes where you said they could score 12 goals. But you also said that point that, and I think, again, this is alarming to some fans, that we seem to have this drop-off of around 20, 25 minutes where for some reason we just go completely missing. And look, maybe you can do that against the Lutons, the Forests of this Premier League and get away with it. But as we've touched upon and George has mentioned, we've got a really, really formidable April coming up where we know that run we've got. We've got Arsenal, of course, we've got Chelsea in there. We've got Liverpool as well. City's just been rescheduled as well. We'll come on to that a bit later on. I don't think, Tal, we can afford to make those kind of decisions or mistakes and have those 20-minute periods and get the results even against those top sides, despite earlier in the season Spurs doing that, if we are going to have a decent end to the season. So I just want to ask you, how much does that concern you? Look, this Destiny, for example, young player, going to improve, of course, young. But do you feel that we will find a solution to those issues of those 20, 25 minutes? Or is that what you've got when you've got a young team that's getting used to a new style? Can you put your finger on it for you, Tal?
I don't know. I think it's a really tricky one, because I don't think there's a clear and obvious reason as to why it's consistently happening. I think you can see the lack of concentration and stuff like that, or, different mentality during different games. But I think to see it so consistently be an issue is where it's a problem for me. The odd game, if you saw it, you just think they've switched off, they're not on it today, blah, blah, blah. But I think we've really got this pattern where it just keeps reoccurring. And that, they always say twice is a pattern, 3 times is a real one. So we've seen it definitely more than 3 times. And I just think you're exactly right on what you said. And it's exactly what I would say is that, we've struggled for the best part of a lot of this season to scrape by some of these teams that we would class respectfully as lower class opposition. If you're in the Champions League, you can't afford to make a mistake. And if you do, you're going to be punished for it. And I think we saw that last night, for example, in some of the games, like 1 second where you don't concentrate, you concede a goal. And you can't afford to do that on that big stage. And I respect Ange and all of his comments massively. And I do think there is that element of, managing the team and the mentality and, not putting the ceiling on it and really, just drilling in what he expects of those players. And I think, look, we're under no disillusion. Of course, he wants Champions League football. He wants to be in it, as do we, as does everyone around the club, players, chairman, everyone. But I think his point is valid in that he doesn't just want to get 4th spot if we're going to be knocked out in the group or if we're going to be knocked out the first chance we get a giant. That's not what he wants. He wants us to be able to compete. Where we are right now, I would say if this Tottenham team that we've seen the last few weekends shows up at one of the giants at Real Madrid last night, we'd have got battered. If you switch off for those 20 minutes, they score 3 goals easy. Yeah, it doesn't happen when you play Luton. They might sneak 1 in and then you think, but when you play those giants, you can't do that, especially not for long periods of time. I think you do get punished. I just think it's not like a huge issue. I do think they're young. They're not, but Andrew said they're not doing this huge tactical training stuff yet. It is still early. And I think we can be ready. And if we qualify, we have to be ready. He's not going to take anything less than that, I think, and you have to, I think, trust the process and know that he is going to work on that and is very much aware of players and their issues and what's causing it. So I think there's definitely room for improvement. And if we want to succeed in the Champions League, we definitely do need to work on it. But it's not, for me, a case of we're totally not ready. I think it is a swim deep, throw you in. We've got to get there. We need top 4. We need it for everything. We've got these world-class facilities, fantastic players that are hungry. We need to be in the best competition. Like, we have to be there. I just hope and think we will with, another preseason and do X, Y, and Z. We will get better. But it is a concern for me, in answer to your question, basically. I just think it's that pattern where, for me, it's too many times. And I get Ange Ball, has his tactics and we're open and high line, etc. But I think you get punished against the big boys and we want to be a big boy. So if we train and play like that, then we won't. And look, we've seen it before. We can do it. I back it for sure. I just think a few new players drilling in over the summer, albeit hard with the Euros, etc. But we can do it. And I hope we're there and I hope we get to watch and we smash it. But process. We'll go with process, but slight concern.
We used to laugh about that word process when it was mentioned by somebody else, but now it's the buzzword process. Everyone's using the buzzword process.
Work mode still. Process.
No, it's the process. I mean, George, I'll bring you in. Look, some really interesting points there. I think we all acknowledge that there's elements of concern with those 20, 25-minute periods where if you switch off, you're going to get punished. And I think we all acknowledge the fact that doing that against a Liverpool, an Arsenal, a City, dare I say even Chelsea, I don't think you can afford to do that with some of the players they've got in terms of quality and abundance. But I just wonder, George, look, you guys know I'm a cup man. I'm not crazy about Ricky Norwood knows I'm a cup man. He's been me on the cup nights. I'm a cup man. I'm not crazy about Champions League football. Look, of course, for me, I love to see the club, competing in the highest possible European competition. But ultimately, I love to see Spurs take those cups seriously. And I think, look, for me, I've said it before, that I wouldn't have been too disheartened to have Europa League football next season because I feel at the moment where Spurs are in their ascendancy, I feel that's a lot more of a winnable competition. Unless Spurs are going to do what I would love them to do, I'm not sure whether they would do, George, and this is maybe a question to you, whether you feel they could do this. Are Spurs going to go out in the summer and genuinely buy 2 to 3 players that, similar to last summer, actually walk into the first team? The likes of a Vicario, the likes of a Mickey van der Ven, the likes of a James Madison. And I know Ange in the past said, doesn't maybe want to spend 100 million on a player. But I don't want to bring them up down the road. I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to do it. But Declan Rice, for me, is single-handedly taken charge of Arsenal and put them for a second season in a row in a title race. And I look at Tottenham, I just feel, we're going to come on to it in a second, that midfield debate we've got at the moment is because no one really is grabbing that number 6 shirt and absolutely tearing it up on a week-by-week basis like he is down the road. And I'm so sorry, guys, to bring it up. It's not about them. It is a Spurs podcast. But can you see where I'm coming from, George?
I can see where you're coming from for sure. And I think for me, it was...
Tell him like that. I saw Talia saying...
Ricky.
Sorry. Apologies. Save me, George.
I'm fully expecting another massive summer of transfers because I think with last year, you could argue that Ange didn't necessarily have, earn the credentials yet to get the complete squad. And let's be real, you're not going to sign a whole new squad or team just in one summer. So it was always going to take some time. And I think that's what's important as well. When just talking about the style of playing the football and obviously conceding goals, it is weird seeing that. Van der Ven and Romero seem to be the most perfect partnership. I'm loving Udogie and Porro every week, yet somehow we're still conceding goals. I think that just purely comes with time. I think if you look at the likes of, you've got to compare it to them because that's where we want to reach. But Man City and Liverpool, it took Klopp 2 years. It took Pep 1 year as well at City. Bearing in mind the abundance of money and players they already had when he joined. To really implement his style. And I think where we've been quite lucky is that we've actually been able to play it pretty much straight away. We've done a good job of adopting Ange ball, but it's not perfect yet. We haven't, like you said, been able to keep the intensity across the full 90. I think that's partly down to lack of competition. I think it's pretty clear now that Emerson's nowhere near Porro's level. As much as Davis is amazing for the club, in terms of a inverted fullback, he is clearly not competition for Udogie. So I think they do sort of get a little bit complacent knowing that their space is there. And I think give another summer transfer window, another January transfer window, bringing the players in, like we've done with Dragosyan to compete with the centre-backs as well. I think it's just going to keep them on their toes more. And I do fully believe that we're going to sign a quality winger in the summer, probably on top of Werner, to be honest with you. And I agree, the 6 is a little bit of a problem. I think Bissouma can still do a really good job there. I really like him because you've seen spells of him being a great player. However, his style, it creates inconsistency because he wasn't bred as a number 6, quote to speak. At Brighton, he was always alongside a defensive midfielder. He played as like a number 8, being able to bring the ball forward. Whereas at the moment, he's playing as a lone DM, and I think he's still sort of got to learn the role. Bentancur sort of the same when he drops in. I think it's pretty obvious that Højbjerg's not going to be here for the foreseeable. So to play him there all the time, I think is a bit, I don't know, it wouldn't make sense if you know you're not going to go with him from next season onwards. So I think that's definitely a position we need to strengthen in, to bring in, I guess, a stronger defensive mid that's able to do just the defensive side of things very well. I think the team it's just got to take the time for them to get used to it. Like we've all said, I agree with all of you that they're quite young. They're probably a bit naive in some games, but it took the greats of Man City and Liverpool a while to get to the way they play, and they don't change their tactics either. I think this whole thing about Ange has to go defensive in some games is crap to me, to be honest, because you obviously kept doing that.
Some go away to City and park the bus. I will just say,
yeah, exactly.
Not mention any names.
Least shots in the league, lowest XG or something like that. Crystal Palace had more against them, which is mental. But yeah, for me, it's just going to take time, and they don't waver from their style of football. They practice over the years to become the best at it, so that you've got no chance of scoring against them. And I think we will inevitably have that. It's not going to happen in one season.
Yeah, no, it's some great points there. I mean, George, you brought him up, so I feel like I've got to go to this guy next in relation to Bissouma. I want to bring Ricks in. Yves Bissouma has admitted that he has made mistakes this season for Tottenham, but he's excited about what the club will achieve under Ange Postecoglou. This was an exclusive with Spurs official that Ben Haynes, friend of the show, obviously was in the car on the drive with Biss, where he said, look, from his perspective, the season started really, really good. Then after that, we were restricted because of a lot of injuries and suspensions that put us in a difficult position. Sometimes I make mistakes because I'm not perfect. I'm still learning. So I know there's more to come. But I'm happy and enjoying this role in the team. I have to enjoy this moment and make the most of it, as where I'm fully in control. I have that feeling of strong And I do feel like I'm being myself. I feel free, so I'm enjoying it at the moment. But in the end, I don't want to have any regrets. So I always fight to feel good. I take full responsibility when it's time to work to change things. Like when I was injured at the end of last season, I was already preparing for this one. For me personally, when Ange came in, he told me exactly what he wants from me and my role in the team. I'm just listening and working hard to perform in the way he wants me to. And I'm really happy to work with him and the group. In relation to Ange, he said, look, I like the way he plays. It's always good because it suits my style. I really like to receive the ball, turn, and then try and find a solution. If it's not on, then I'll dribble to make the space and find a solution. My role is to try and get the ball and to try and find a solution for my team. It's really fun. I'm enjoying this a lot. To be on the pitch in the Premier League is great for me because I'm one of the best leagues in the world. I've worked over the years to hone my style of play, and I want to continue playing in this way. He went on to finally say, we're going to work really hard to put this team where we want to be because this team deserves a lot. I believe we can achieve great things because we have so many young players with so much talent. That's why I'm not worried about the club's future, because I know one day we'll be where we are aiming to be. And these are really big words here from Biss. This club means everything to me. To be a Spurs player is such a big deal. It's a blessing for me to be here, and I'm enjoying the moment. I'm not only doing this for me, but for the club, for the fans, for my family, for everyone. I love everyone here at the club. I love, in relation to the most important things in life and in football. But believe me, I only want the best for the club. There's really big words there from Bisrick, and it comes in a period where, let's be honest about it, there's a slight controversial adversity as to whether he should be starting games. And, when you look at the start of the season, and I've said this a number of times, so guys, I'm so sorry for those that listen to this on a weekly basis that feel like, God, he's like a broken record. I said at the start, if he maintained that run of those 7-8 games, he would have been up there for me as one of the players of the season. And it's really hard to understand what has gone wrong. I mean, listen, he had a couple of suspensions that you could argue maybe has dented his confidence. But, I've asked this question a lot. I might have asked you it before. I mean, Ricks, do you think we'll see that same player again? Is it a confidence issue? Because he's got a manager now that really likes him, that he's put an arm around him, that said from day one, and you were here actually when we spoke about this in pre-season, he said, look at the young players. You can be a real role model to them. Why have we not seen that Bissouma in these past 20, 25 games, Rick? Can you put your finger on it?
Not really, and I think if anybody could put their finger on it, they'd let him know. And the people that are in the club and in and around him every single day would have really kind of seen whatever that niggle is. Those first 8, 9, 10 games of the season where he was just outstanding, we haven't seen that Bissouma again as yet. And at times he's had good performances, but they just haven't hit those heights again. He also came back from the internationals as well. So he was out for the internationals and came back with malaria as well. So he's had a very rocky, bumpy season. But all of those words are really encouraging to me. Like I've said before on the show, actually, is that I do have faith that when these boys do make mistakes, that they are shown those mistakes and they are working on those mistakes. And they are trying to rectify those mistakes. Now, it's not going to happen every time, and it doesn't happen overnight. But the fact that they've recognized it, admitted it, when you could admit that you're wrong in any circumstance in life, you're in a position of strength, because at that moment there, you can now see it for what it is, and then, put all your efforts to making that change. But just because you see it and recognize it and want to change it doesn't mean that it changes straight away. You have to consistently work on that to make that change. And the fact that he said those words, I think, are really encouraging. But for me, what is really kind of, it's really good to see is that we now have consequence for action or inaction. So now if there's a player, now that we've got a squad and now that they're pretty much fully fit, barring a couple, that if somebody's not up to form or if somebody's not playing well, that doesn't mean that we don't love you. And just because we critique you doesn't mean that we don't think you can be the best that you can possibly be again. But right now you can be taken out of the firing line. You can ask to be sat on the bench. And that in itself is something that can fire up the players. That in itself can be a learning tool as well. Ange done it with Brennan Johnson. He's been trying to bring him in little bit by little bit in the times. And Ali Gold, another friend of the show says this as well. At times where he's been able to kind of watch and see where he can affect the game, so that when Johnson does come onto the pitch, he then runs into those spaces and makes those kind of runs and makes those changes within the game to have an effect on it. And I think that can be said for Bissouma too. If he's not up to scratch, if he's not up to form, and especially after a couple of starts, 2-3 starts, and we're not seeing what we need to be seeing, well, then we can take him out. And look at what happened on the weekend. He wasn't doing it. And young Sarr, who's been fantastic throughout the season, he was misplaced in passes, and he wasn't. There was a lot of energy there, but there was a lot of things that just wasn't bouncing right. So at half time, Ange made that change, and look at the difference that it makes. So right now, to have consequence for your action or inaction, for the good or the bad, is us in a really strong position. Being able to change the game like that is a luxury now that we've got. And how many times we again been on this show, and the manager or a coach or we as fans have looked at the bench and gone, well, what can a manager do? Who can he bring on to change the game? Right now, we do have game changers. Right now, we can pull out a first teamer, even if Madison's on it, off of it, and you want to put him on the bench for a minute. Well, he's going to then be fired up and kind of be like, I don't like the bench. I want to be back on the field. So what do I need to do? What do I need to kind of make sure I implement? Or sometimes where they're trying too hard, it can go skew with. I felt that happened in the second half against West Ham. West Ham they parked the bus, and I felt that the way that we were playing, we were trying to force Ange ball. We were trying to do the things, and we was thinking about doing the things. When Tottenham are in their flow state, when they know what to do naturally, when they don't have to think about where the pass is, when it's almost telepathic of what's happening, we see the beauty of Ange ball, and we see the beauty of this team. And Bissouma is another one that just needs to get into his flow state. He hasn't been able to find that flow state because of whatever reason that may be. I still think there's a great player in there. When we signed him, he was the one that I was most excited about that summer. So I still think there's a lot to come from him. But the fact that he said that is a great indication that he's going to work on it, and that we will see the best of this real soon.
Yeah, listen, lovely words there, Rick. I think just to put it out there, we've had a number of, I've got to say, emails that have come in from a lot of loyal viewers and listeners to Last Word on Spurs that have asked me to make the point that, I think recently Sarr and Bissouma, both of them have been obviously with Ramadan, have had to obviously fast, and that might be another potential reason why both of those guys may be off form. We know Sarr is currently obviously trying to manage his back issue, and interestingly, James Madison, in his interview recently this week with Dan Kilpatrick in the Standard, said that he thinks he's getting close to being back at his best. But he said, look, I'm very critical of myself. Maybe I'm not at the heights that won me player of the month at the start of the season, but I'm not too far away. And, it's interesting, bringing you in there, Tal. I can see you shaking your head there to some degree. You don't seem certain on that. And just on that as well, again, you meant, Rick brought up Sarr. Where are we in your mind, Tal, with relation to the midfield? Because Bentancur, we've again saw him rush back very, very early. He looked great for a couple of games. Then, of course, he was then getting a little bit criticised for not being at the top of his peak. We then saw his introduction with Højbjerg, obviously, at the weekend. And we saw that Forest game change on that substitution. So Jonathan Black, they're very kindly putting out a message to say, never thought he'd be in a position where he'd be applauding Ange for bringing Højbjerg on. So where are you in this midfield debate at the moment for you, Tal?
I mean, I agree, to be honest. I think against Forest, it was just a no-brainer in terms of bringing Pierre and Bentancur and change the game for us. We had so much more fluidity when they're on the pitch. I do think it's one of those things where, again, it's maybe if it was the other way around, we would have said the same thing, if you know what I mean, like 45 minutes in, it's hard to do. But I think we looked so much better once they came on, and the applause and everyone that they were getting from the fans after the game was crazy, because I think they were so much better, particularly in that game. Biss had so much of the ball and wasted it every single time it landed on his feet. And I know where I sit in the stadium, everyone was getting so frustrated. And it's that classic thing of like, oh my God, why is this happening the whole time? And I think with Højbjerg, it's frustrating because it's like, yes, he has a few stray passes and, he's not an 11 out of 10 player, but he does help make something happen. And people go shoot, and he shoots and he does stuff. And I think he's done a good job since coming on. I think he gets a really rough deal from the fans and has done for a really long time. But I think in his current form and where Biss, etc., has been off it. I think he is playing the role better at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did start at the weekend. However, saying that, I do think Biss is better in against high-pressing teams where there is a lot quicker play and stuff, and I think Højbjerg is a lot better and a lot more calming when he has time to actually think. I think when there's a high press and he can't think, that's where he makes mistakes. So I'll be interested to see where it goes at the weekend. But I think there's a case for both. But I do think it goes back to this whole squad depth, that you're allowed players that have different strengths. We have different opposition. That's a perfect example. You've got a player that works well against high press and a player that works well when he actually has time to think. Why not use that to our advantage? Play one in one position or one game and one the next. That's cool. I think we're just going through that thing again where it's like we've seen how good Biss can be, and not seeing that consistently is a struggle. But again, like malaria, etc., is no joke. Maybe that is the thing. Maybe it's a confidence thing off the back of Luton. I don't know. It could be various things, and we don't need to, I guess, sit here and assume. But whatever it is, you know, I think he's good. I really like some of those quotes. I think his mentality seems to be in the right place. I know I've heard a few party boy things going on in the background, but, you know, on the pitch, I think all we want to do is see him perform in the way that he has been doing. But yeah, I think getting a good quality number 6 in the summer is crucial for us. And if Højbjerg can fill a hole for now and is that player that can bring calm into the midfield and slow things down and really make sure there is a lot more fluidity, then so be it. But where I was shaking my head was with Madison. I think he's been a passenger in most games since his comeback. I do not think he's anywhere near his best.
Is he fit, Tal? He doesn't look fully fit to me. I don't
want to ask him.
I mean, am I maybe just defending him there? Only because we saw what Madison did in those opening 8-9 games. And to be fair, again, speaking to some people that in the podcast world that know him of Leicester, this was very much a similar trait with Madison, where he would have a great run of form, get injured, and unfortunately, it would then take 5, 6, 7 games to get back up to speed. And I think as Spurs fans, we just thought, well, do you know what? It'll just slot back in and be the Madison that he was in those opening 8-9 games. It hasn't happened yet. I mean, are you putting it more down to your theory in regards to being more of a passenger rather than they're carrying an injury?
Look, no, I hope he is. Like, you know, everyone's always said his ankles and whatever else is made of glass as well and stuff like that. And maybe that's true. But I think I'm more concerned of him thinking he thinks he's near back to his best, because from what I've seen, he's definitely not. He's nowhere near that player that we saw at the beginning. I feel bad for him in a way, because I think we put so much pressure on him that he will, post Eriksen, we never had this creative player. And it was like, Madison, he's everything we've been looking for and can do it. And I think, again,
number 10 shirt, all that went with it, of course.
Exactly. Yep. Joining those dots, and it all seemed perfection. And where we started so strong, we saw that Madison, right? And it was exactly what we were looking for. And he was getting assists with Sonny, and it was great, and scoring his own goals or whatever. But I just think since he's been injured, I've not seen that, and I don't like it. But look, fair enough if he is carrying an injury and stuff, that's cool. I just think he has been a passenger and he's come off early. He must be injured, I think, to some degree. I just don't know how much that is. But to be fair to him, Lo Celso, when he's come on, he's been running ragged and trying to put a good shift in. So I can't really fault him for that. But I think I've seen a lot online that people are happy when he's coming on. You know, they're like, take others off and put on Lo Celso. Who thought we'd be saying that? I know things change rapidly as Spurs fans, but it's the same thing. Who would have thought we'd be clapping on Højbjerg to come on, and Lo Celso when he comes on for, you know, these players? It's kind of crazy. But I think we all want the best and the 10 out of 10 version of our players. It's like everything in any, you can't be consistently fantastic at what you do the whole time. That's, you know, we're all human and we can't all be incredible all the time. But I think it's just, if you're carrying that injury, again, it's squad depth. Do what you can, but don't overdo it. But also then be honest. Like, I think someone just said in the comments, we have such high expectations of him. And I completely agree. We do. Because like I said, it is that Eriksen stopgap, and he is the person we're relying to on being creative. And when we haven't been creative, it's like, Madders. But it's not just him. It's everything about it. But it kind of feels that way. And I think we do have to take some responsibility for that. But I don't think he's the kind of player that feels that pressure in that sense. I think it's just, you know, we expect a lot from him and we want to see that. And where we're not seeing it, it's kind of like, oh. But yeah, from a quote perspective, I think that's where my head shake was a bit like, well, if he feels like he's almost at his best, is he sure? I'm not. But I hope he is back to his best soon, because we need a strong end to the season and he can definitely help us, as can all the other boys.
Yep, I totally agree. Just one final thing before we get into Newcastle. Just want to ask you guys about Timo Werner. You know, he's enjoying life at Spurs, but the fate, of course, of any potential permanent deal is out of his hands. It is firmly in the hands of Spurs, who we know can activate a long-term deal for a fee of around 15 million this summer. He made the opening goal, of course, against Forest, which was turned into his own net by Marilla. Of course, that unbelievable Beckham-esque shot that if that went in, there would have been real questions asked at the time. But at the moment with Werner, he's got to his name 3 assists, 2 goals in 11 appearances. So what you're looking at there, you're looking at about 5 goal involvements in 11 appearances. I mean, I've been saying it's like Ronto. It does what it says on the tin. It's a goal or assist every other game. George, I'd love to know where you are quickly. We'll just go round the table on Werner because it's an interesting one. Where are you in relation to him? And if right now you had to make that decision, have you seen enough for you to want to activate that 15 million clause there that would make him a permanent Spurs player for the summer?
I think for me, it's got to be totally dependent on what we see him as. So if we're signing him permanently to be our first choice left winger, I don't think that's the right move to make. I think it has to be with a caveat that he is effectively replacing Bryan Hill, for example, if he was to leave. As a squad player, yeah. And I think look, for 15 mil, for someone who is a proven Prem Champions League player, as a squad player, I think is necessary. I think we're living in dreamland if we think we're going to go and sign 2 left wingers or 2 forwards that are first team caliber that will be competing with each other. It's not going to happen. And the things I like about his game at the moment is that he does go at the defenders and he's good at getting at the byline and getting the ball across, which is why I think he's good at assisting. I just think his finishing is really poor, which is why I don't think he has the attributes to be a complete player that we need in our starting 11. But I think he has shown me more quality as a squad option than some of the other players we've had in the past. Not to knock Bryan Hill, he's just the easiest example. But someone like him who we brought in with really high expectations, with labels of like the next Messi, and he's not hit it at all. And I get you could argue that he's maybe not had the minutes or the chances, but there's probably a reason for that. I'm sure we would have seen a lot more of him if he was as good as we were believed he should be. So yeah, I think Werner as a squad option, 15 mil, for me, I think it's a no-brainer, but it definitely should not be the case that he is a starting left winger for us. Okay,
interesting. George, I mean, exactly the same mindset as you. I've said it all along that I'd be concerned if that was going to be our definitive seen as a main first-team squad player next season, given that record. But I think, look, I'm in agreement with you, George, that based on the overall goal contributions there, 5 goal involvements in 10 games so far, 11 games so far, I don't think you're going to find a better option of around 15 million as a squad player rather than taking the risk and going back into the market with, again, signing maybe an unknown entity that isn't Premier League proven. And then, again, gambling when you know Werner has shown you already he can do it. I mean, Rixie said, look, I think the only thing I can say in my future at the moment is that I like to play the football here and the rest is not my turn. It's fun. I think the way we play, I can enjoy my football. My strengths fit really well into this system. And at the end, it's about running, giving anything on the pitch, and that's what I can try. He referred to the Forest game as a really important game that could see the club go back into the top 4. That was our aim before the game, and we did it. That's a good feeling. I mean, to be fair, Ange is keeping his cards very close to his chest, maybe looking him to really earn that deal. Rix, where are you in terms of your perspective on Timo Werner? Are you up for signing him right now or still needing to be proved more?
You know what, bro? For me, I think it's been a successful loan right now. I think we also have to take into account that he was out with an injury for about 6 months, and when he came to Tottenham, these was his first games. He wasn't really getting game time at RB Leipzig as well. So he is finding his feet as well. But it's been a successful loan, as in he's come in, contributed, he's been there, he's been a willing runner, a willing worker. But I'm a bit like Ange. I want him to earn it. I think it's been successful so far, but I want him to earn it. I was talking to another friend of the show, Hartman, earlier today, and he was saying, you know what can you get for 15 mil in today's market? Really and truly, not even a championship player you can get for 15 mil. Not somebody who has the wealth of experience that he's got. And you know what, we were going back and forth, but he for me, he almost takes the Perisic spot in the squad. You know, somebody that can come in and come off the bench and change the game, or somebody that does have that experience to kind of play a Champions League game, or to be able to be rotated and be relied upon in the sense that he can play on the wing and get crosses in and be reliable and wants to be there. He's another one with character. He's another one with heart. He's another one with honesty that fits the squad, that fits the club, that fits the manager right now. So it is a bit of a no-brainer. But I tell you what, my friend, if he scores the winner against the Gooners, my gosh, I think we would all want to sign him that day, bruv. But if he goes and scores the winner against Chelsea, bruv, I swear to God, I will find the 15 mil myself and I'll pay it straight. I'll pay it direct debit, bruv. Like, no installments, one time, 100% have it.
Well, listen, I'm going to say you'll be on here, Ricks, if he does do that after the game. And that'll be monumental in itself for you to see it in your own eyes and be on here to talk about it. I love that for Ricky Norwood. I love that, man. Sound bringing you in.
Incredible. I can't follow that.
Yeah, I know. What's Ricky doing to us here? So I want to ask you where you stand on him. And a really good point's been made. That someone like Kulusevski, he's not been great this season. To be fair, when you look at what Werner's bringing to the table at the moment, you know, again, you look at the goal involvements there, and with no respect to Decky, for whatever reason, again, he's off form at the moment. Maybe he does need a bit of a rest, and again, similar to Johnson, come back into the frame when he's, you know, refreshed and ready to go. Is it a no-brainer at 15 million, Tao, if these are the kind of stats that he's obviously bringing to the table?
Last time I was on here a few weeks ago, I said, yeah. You asked me that question, and I said 100% yes. I would be less likely to say that now, or I am.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
What's changed in your mind?
I think George was spot on with what he said in that, like, if he's a Hill replacement, I'm on board, and I do think it's a no-brainer. But I don't think he's anywhere near good enough to be starting in what is hopefully going to be a top 4 team competing in the Champions League. And if we go back to what we were saying earlier, if we've got this weak link or you know, someone that isn't properly up to scratch sometimes against these giants, then it's not going to work. And I feel like his finishing is nowhere near good enough. If we want to compete, I don't think he's that player. I know it's 15 million, but I don't think he is that starting player for us. It's almost like the same vibes of having Sanchez in for Mickey, right? It's like, yeah, you're happy with him as a squad player, but when he comes on, you're fuming because you're like, that is a massive drop-off. And I think if we sign a great winger and then he gets injured and we got Timo in, we'd be like, fuming. There's no way he can do what this guy can do. But
on the basis of these stats, go for it.
I'm going to say, however,
yep,
I do agree with what Ricky just beautifully said. And that not the whole I'll give 15 million part, because I don't have 15 million, unfortunately. But
listen, I was joking. I didn't mean that either. I don't have 15 million, I promise.
Oh, Princess Switch was an iconic film.
I gotta say now, everyone's queuing up for Dancing on Ice now. Thinks a 15 million fee. Everyone's going up there now. We're all going to the studio behind Rick now for our paydays. I mean, he performed bloody well on there. I tell you, he deserved the 15 million for how he performed on there.
But
let me clear it up. There is no 15 million. I'm joking, all right? There is no 15 million.
True. Okay.
Save him, Tal. Save him.
Yeah, I save you. But yeah, I think you can get nothing for 15 million, not even Ricky Norwood, right? So you can't get a lot for 15 mil. So as long as we sign him on the premise that he is this squad player and, you know, is more in that B team lineup, I think it is a no-brainer. I really like his mentality. I think he's a nice guy. He speaks well. And most importantly, he wants to be there. He's enjoying his time there, which is what we want. They're the players we want and they're the players Ange wants. And it's a big bonus if he can help, you know, build that dressing room and keep that momentum going. I just think his finishing is a bit poor, and we are used to these average-ish players. And if we're fighting and doing this stuff, we want these upgrades. It feels slightly to me like, is he the right one? Are we just saying yes because he's here and is doing these things? Or is he actually good enough for what we're trying to achieve? So I think as a squad player, I'd say no brainer. Would I like him to be starting for Tottenham next season? No way.
Fair. Okay, Tal, thank you so much. Guys, before we do go for our final break of the show, for our listeners on audio, just a quick update for you that probably would have seen it already. The Premier League have confirmed the new date for Tottenham's Crunch League fixture against Man City. That will now take place later in the season. Originally, the candidate was for Saturday, the 20th of April. That game was postponed as a result of Pep Guardiola's team featuring in the FA Cup semi-finals against Chelsea. That game in North London will now kick off at 8 p.m. and it's due to be broadcasted live on Sky Sports. I think, depending on how this season goes, many won't disagree with us maybe fielding a really young under 21s, under 18s, under 15s. You'll tell me to stop under 12s, under 8s. We'll see what that does bring that fixture where it does come at the time.
Today. Don't worry, everyone. I'll play in goal.
Thank you, Tal. Thank you so much. Listen, what we are going to do, we are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners and audio. There's over 1,500 of you watching us live on YouTube, on Insta, on X, on Twitch. Thank you so much for all your incredible support for the show. Given there was an issue earlier with YouTube Live, taking this break, you're going to hear from a very good friend of mine, Ketch, over at a Newcastle podcast, 442, that very kindly give you their thoughts ahead of the game against Newcastle. And that is where we're going to turn our attention to next if we can. Spurs, of course, will continue their pursuit of a top 4 place. Don't let Andrew you say that with that difficult trip to Newcastle United, St James's Park, for what many call the dreaded Saturday early kickoff at 12:30 p.m. That won't mean much to a lot of our overseas listeners. For those that are based in the UK, I know this is a dreaded time. It must mean George, you're setting off very, very early on Saturday morning.
I'm leaving the day before. I have to. I'm not getting up at 4 in the morning to go to Newcastle. So things we have to do.
Good on you, mate. Good on you. We're going to come to George in a second, but I want to start with you, Ricks. Look, where Newcastle are this season, I think they'll say themselves it's been a real disappointing one that has been really, to some degree, similar to Tottenham, that has been absolutely compounded by injuries. However, Newcastle are a team undefeated at home in the last 3 months. That includes a run of 14 goals in their last 5 home fixtures. And last week's win at Fulham leaves them just 2 points behind 6th place Manchester United. And although it's been a really disappointing season for the club, a strong end to the season could see them back in Europe for the 24-25 campaign and could even qualify for the Europa League. So, Ricks, from the outside looking in, I know we probably not wanted to look at Newcastle about a year after what happened and we smashed them earlier in the season 4-1. How do you feel, Ricks, about Newcastle this season? And I was worried we lost you there because you didn't want to talk about them.
No, I'm back, bruv. I'm back. So it did just blink, but I just missed the end of the question. Sorry, bro.
How do you feel personally about facing Newcastle United and what have you made of their season so far as an outsider looking in?
Yeah, Newcastle are a work in progress, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They've got the financial backing. They've changed up their squad. They've had a new structure, a new management system. And right now, this season, they've had a bumpy one. They've had a real bumpy season. They've had Europe to contend with as well. Injuries galore, suspensions. But they are, you can see by their fight back and their comeback against West Ham that they are a side that, they don't quit. So it's definitely going to be a fun-packed game. It's definitely going to be, back and forth, left, right, and centre. And I think Eddie Howe's a good manager too. I think they've got a project right now, but they've had a lot of games to deal with this season. And they've had a lot of issues to deal with, and this is definitely going to be one for them that is going to be seen as a learning season of what it's like to be back in Europe and have those amount of games and stuff like that. And look at us, like we haven't had those amount of games, and we're complaining that we haven't got those amount of games, and they've had an amount of games that they haven't had before, and they're complaining about that too. So it's crazy. But I think it's going to be a great back and forth game, bro. And I won't give you my score. Do you want score predictions in this as well, Rick?
We'll go back round one more time, Rick. We'll hold.
All right, I'm going to hold it for now, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think we owe them. I think that it's time for some revenge. I think that if they haven't been beaten at home for I don't know how many months you just said, then I think it's definitely 3 months. Well, I think it's time for that record to end. Come Saturday, 12:30. The only apprehension is that we're playing in that salmon, beige, brown kind of
the devil kit.
Cream.
Taupes. Forgive me. How's it pronounced? Anyone know how it's pronounced?
Taupe. I don't know.
Taupe. Unlucky. Let's just call it the unlucky show.
So that's the only thing. It's not even the 12:30 that's bothering me.
Sorry,
right
guys.
now.
I just look at that. It's the Carabao Cup kit. Don't make me think about it again.
This is what I'm saying. You see what I mean? It's that kit, man. It's that kit. I don't know why they're not playing in blue and white. Playing blue and white. That's not going to clash with stripes, is it? Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's the only thing that gives me apprehension. But us going into a big game and into a run of 7 games where, you know, every single point and every single minute matters, I think we're going to be up for that fight. And I think that we're going to, you know, do ourselves proud, man.
Do you know what? I look at this game. I think this is, again, I know we talk about April being a really tough month, but you know what? Coming over to Utah if I can. This is one of those games where I look at it and think, you know, we've had the Brightons away, we've had the Evertons. You know, we've had games this season where Spurs, you go up there and you genuinely think they should win the game, and yet we have had some really disappointing results on the road. I mean, again, Wolves have been another one there. Yeah. Really hard to predict what kind of Spurs are going to turn up. Newcastle, to give them credit under Eddie Howe recently, have come into a bit of form, but look, they're nowhere near where they wanted to be this season. I think it is a slight, I think in a way, I would say, not reminder to Tottenham, but a warning that when you look at that team, and if you don't strengthen in the right areas, and they've had issues around PSR and again FFP, that again, they went into the European season, obviously coming up, well, the season that they had where the squad wasn't really, I'd say, investing as much as what they could have done. And therefore, I think it's a warning to Tottenham that if you don't make that next step in terms of bringing in the certain players, that you can find yourselves almost having a season that you didn't expect to. Because I think many Newcastle fans thought they were going to push on. But I think it's worth adding that I know many Newcastle fans felt they maybe went a season very early in terms of their development where they ended up in the Champions League when they didn't expect to. So have you been surprised, Tal, by the drop-off this season? Or is that something that you could have seen coming, given what they had in their plate with trying to juggle European football and trying to compete in the Premier League?
I mean, I don't think I cared enough to see it coming, to be honest. Like, forget what Newcastle do.
Fair play. But,
I mean, yes, I think, again, it's the importance of squad depth. They, you know, got this takeover, had all this money, great. Got in Eddie Howe doing all this stuff, building, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think they had these players that were incredible and doing a good job. I think they overperformed massively last year. They were a banger. They're largely bang average players, and they did a really, really great job. So fair play to them. But I don't think, you know, they went out on a massive spree and, you know, bought these players that you expect incredible things from. I think they have average players that really overperform. So I'm not surprised by them dropping off. I just don't think they essentially have the squad depth to be able to cope with everything that's been gone on. But, you know, again, fair enough. That's their thing. And I obviously don't follow their season like I do ours. So I don't know, or I can't remember off the top of my head what's been going on. But they're a funny old team. And I think they're similar to some of the others. Like, a bit like United this season. You just think they lose all the time, but they're actually fairly up there. And I'm not sure how it's happened, but they just seem to be breathing a bit. And you're like, you've lost so many games. How are you there? I constantly think that about United. And I feel like Newcastle were a little bit similar. So I don't know. I think this weekend is you know, every game's so important, but I really think this one is. Last season was a mess, as we don't need to talk about. And I do feel like we're a lot more prepared this season. I really do. And I think it's hard to predict, one, because what Tottenham's going to show up, but two, I think Newcastle are quite similar in that who are they going to put on? They've got so many injuries. They are very sporadic with their play as well. And I think it could just go either way. Obviously, I'd love to see us win, and I sincerely hope that we do. But they've got a good home atmosphere, and they can be dangerous. They've got their few little dangerous players that could definitely hurt us. Again, if we've got that 20-25 minute period where we switch off, Gordon and Isak are there to pounce. They will be scoring.
And Harvey Barnes as well. They're hoping to have all three of them fit
Harvey
for the first time.
Hasn't he? He's been phenomenal at the moment. He's changed the game for them. But it's the same thing. It's, if there's that switch off, they're a danger. But ultimately, I do think they have quite a slow defence, though, if I'm right. So I think we can definitely hurt them, especially if we've got Johnson and Timo, etc., running, and hopefully Sonny, and we got that pace up. I think we can definitely hurt them, and that is why I actually feel quite optimistic for once. I think we should be winning this game, and I hope we are the side that comes and plays that way, keeps on the pressure, plays the pace that we know that they can't do or keep up with for 90 minutes at least and hurt them where we can. But big game. And yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, and Bruno Guimaraes probably murdered that, like a classic Ricky job of murdering any name that we say. But you know who I mean. They've got players that hurt us, but we've got players that can hurt them. So let's go. It's going to be end-to-end stuff, I think, until we both get lazy and it'll be boring.
Tal, does that, before I come to George and we start predictions, do you feel, does the kickoff time benefit us in any way, in your opinion, or not?
No. Why would it benefit us?
I just wonder whether, again, for Newcastle on the reverse, whether those, I mean, listen, their fans are always passionate and up for it, whether it being a 12:30 benefits us rather as opposed to them, or you don't think
they're
so?
Northern. They start drinking at like 5 a.m. They're up for it. They love it. I don't, and that's not against, by the way. I respect that massively. So fair play.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
yeah, good luck to them.
Yeah, I think there is this curse, and it's all fun and games, right? The
Mm.
kit's a curse, the time's a curse. Is it? Maybe it is, and if it is, cool. But there's always going to be a curse. First, it's the Harry Kane curse, and it's a kit curse, and there's always another curse. No, let's not. Let's break the curse, and it is what it is as well. You can't change it. We've got a 12:30 fixture schedule. These players are paid to work whatever time the game's kicking off at. So I want them to show up and win, whether that be 12:30, 3 o'clock, 4:30, 5:30, who knows, with Amazon and God knows what else. The times change more than we change underwear at this point. But whatever time a kickoff is, I want to win.
I totally agree on that.
Very long day.
I love Tal, bless you. Thank you so much for that. Got no interest in opposition now, you can see from Tal, so she won't want to do an opposition preview.
That's a lie. Come on, I do. I just don't care about their season or what's going on with them. No.
And we don't blame you for that at all. We just love you even more. George, I'm going to come to you. They've got a horrendous injury list that, to be fair, typical with Tottenham coming around, as Anthony Costa would say, they're all coming back now. They're all coming back. Callum Wilson, I understand, is a late doubt for the game, as is Kieran Trippier, but there are doubts over Miguel Almiron, Livramento, Joelinton, Nick Pope, all expected to be out of this one, alongside Sven Botman, who has been obviously a key defender for Newcastle, out for the rest of the season. As Tal touched upon there, they are going to maybe fill for the first time Harvey Barnes, Isak and Gordon as a front three. Genuinely excited for Eddie Howe about what that front three can do. George, as you said, mate, you're up there the night before. What? Don't ask me why I brought that up. George, what are we expecting? Give me your prediction. Where do you see this going?
I can't not see this as a high-scoring game, to be honest with you. I think Gordon has only not provided a goal or assist in a home match at Forest at home. I think he has provided.
Funny on him, George, and I'll come back on for this, George. You know what's funny is that when Spurs were linked with Gordon, we thought, why are Spurs going for Anthony Gordon? And I think, again, it was a Paratici prodigy that he looked at. And you look at him now, and he's absolutely flying there, isn't he, for Newcastle? Absolutely flying.
Yeah, I think he's had a stellar season for them. I think he's going to be definitely a one to worry about. Playing at home, his record's fantastic. Obviously, we all know we play inverted fullbacks, which naturally is going to leave a lot of space for players out wide, which is where I think the danger is. If I'm being totally honest, I think Van der Ven and Romero have got Isak. He's not the main worry for me. I think it's definitely the wide players, because Anthony Gordon knows how to draw in a penalty. We know we don't get given them, so it's naturally going to get fallen on their side. So I think that's where the main threat's going to come from, and I think we're going to have to be physical in midfield, like you guys have touched on. Bruno Guimaraes is a quality player, but we know how aggressive he can be, which is why I would worry a little bit about Højbjerg starting, because I think coming off the bench, he sort of brings the passion and the desire, but even in the second half, he still switched off for the last 20 minutes. He still gave away stopping mistakes. And these players at Newcastle are going to put pressure on our players. And I just don't know if this is the right game for Højbjerg. I think last week was fantastic. This week, I'm not so sure. But I'm expecting a really high-scoring game. Their defense is woeful. And we just know that we tend to leak goals. So it's going to be a big one.
George,
am I giving a score? Is this what?
We'll get your predictions. I want to know from you. Who's your midfield for this one? Who would you go with in midfield, Tottenham-wise?
If I'm being completely honest, it's really hard because I want to get Bentancur in there. But I don't see him as the 6 either. But Sar's also been so phenomenal this year that I don't want to drop him. So if I'm being that's really tough. If I'm being completely honest, I think it still needs to be Bissouma and Sar. I think we've just seen in the past that Ange, he tells the players to make mistakes and not change the game plan. And I don't think with Bissouma. I think, to be honest with you, he has had a good couple of, let's say, halves recently. It's not been terrible the last 4 games or so that he's been back in, but I think Ange is a big promoter of letting the players make the mistakes and still carrying on and going. And I think his press resistance and ability is I prefer him over Højbjerg. Bentancur I really want in the game, but I don't see how I squeeze all of them in, because you're going to need Madison. So that's the bit I can't decide is whether it's Sarr or Bentancur in midfield.
But it's Madison for Lo Celso in your mind, George?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've got to. I think Lo Celso is a great player to bring off the bench.
Yeah,
he seems to bring something. He seems to bring a little bit of energy about him when he comes on. But again, it doesn't strike me as a player that for the full 90 minutes we're going to see a consistent top performance. And I think you've just got to let Madison work through and get up to speed with the game. And I think he's fine. I think he'll be fine with him.
Okay, lots of draw predictions in here. George, what are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for a 3-2 Spurs win.
Okay.
Plenty of goals, but we've got to go for the Spurs win. I always have to.
I love it. I'm going to fit this in really nice and just go for a 2-2, because everyone will forget my prediction when Ricky Norwood said his prediction, because in the history of LastWordOnSpurs, Ricky has never predicted anything other than a Tottenham win. And I think from now on, the guy, that ain't going to change. So before we go to Ricky's prediction, let's go to Tal. Tal, what are you going to go for?
My gut says a draw.
Yeah,
I think 2-2 or Rogue 3-2. I think it could be leaky. So, it's one of them. We can't defend, but we can score goals. So can we. So fair. So I think that, but I will, for the goodness of the people, and there is a chance, I will go for a Tottenham win, but narrow. 1-up. So it'll either be 4-3 or 3-2. Don't know which way.
God.
It'll be a 1-0. You know, when you say this, it'll be 1-0. Actually, I think too much. It's not.
I think if both teams can't defend, there's no way chance to be a 1-0.
I'm going to go.
Sticks all anyone?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Drawing sticks. So what are we going for? Finally, what do we go for there?
No. I'm either going for 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-0, or maybe 4-3.
Let's just say a high-scoring game from Talia. Give you all the predictions you can go for. Ricks, let's close it with you. What are we going for?
Well, what I want is 7-1. Is what I want.
God, we all want that. Well, yeah.
That's what I want.
Revenge.
Yeah, revenge, but with an extra little cherry on top. Do you know what I mean? What my prediction is I'm saying 4-2, bruv. I reckon it'll go 2-2. I reckon Trippier will end up coming off the bench and scoring a free kick just so that Costa can go mad and start waving the flag of, the ex-player coming back to haunt Tottenham.
Start calling me before I do the podcast.
Yep. But then I predict that Richarlison comes off the bench and scores the other 2, and then just ends up doing Wilson's celebration. I don't even know if he has a celebration, but ends up doing Wilson's celebration in his face on the bench, bruv, and they made it 4-2. But Tal, you missed it out, mate, babe. You missed it out, babe. You could have gone 12-1 with your 12 goals in 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
No,
I see that as well.
We're not good enough for that right now. That's next season. Every game.
All right,
12.
fine.
Today,
Fine.
4. We'll go.
I love it.
Yeah, but
it's a process. Remember, Ricky, it's a process.
It's true.
Listen, I think we'd all take a 4-2. I think we take any kind of a win there. King also
says, I'll take 3 points in any score you can give.
I totally agree. 33 points and 48 at home. Newcastle are a formidable side. Just to give you some really quick stats on Newcastle, they've recorded 2 wins from their only previous 7 games at home at St James's Park, where they are beating their last 5 at home. So, we saw Everton go there and snatch a late draw. So they can be got at. But, with the last 8 minutes, Tottenham and Newcastle have finished with both teams finding the net, of course, on a regular basis. So that both teams love scoring goals, and Spurs have just claimed a single victory from any of their previous 6 showdowns outside of the capital. Spurs, not great travellers, but look, let's hope they can change that. Guys have gone there for a really, all that as a whole, of positive predictions. I want to say a massive thank you, George. Thank you so much. We wish you luck, mate, on the way there. Safe journey there and safe journey back.
Thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one. If it's anything like last year, I might not even make it back, to be honest with you. But no, we're positive. We're coming back. We're slapping the win on them, and we're going to be enjoying the ride back.
Bless you. Anyone can still find you, George, over at George Achilliea, George, across the socials?
Yeah, it's George Achilliea across everything. Posting every day on Instagram, TikTok, and all that stuff is flying. And then obviously getting the YouTube videos back. Actually, after the Newcastle game, I'm filming with Newcastle fans, doing a dual Newcastle fans think the same video. So that's going to
okay.
be a very tasty one to watch out for probably next week.
Amazing. Watch and wait for it to drop, guys, in the Spurs community. Jules, thank you so much. Pleasure as always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Love it.
Pleasure as always, Jules. Tal, thank you so much. Tal, I keep saying we've really not been lucky with some of the fixtures, but we are going to get you back on before the end of the season. We're going to make it work, whether it's post-match, preview match, we're going to make it happen. Thank you for your time and what's been a busy day for you, where we've got some decent events in there that we always love you for. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think I've lost it a little bit today, but, you know, I have good intentions. Let's go with that. But I love it as always. Long days, it's worth it. So thank you for having me and appreciate all your nice and not so nice comments.
Listen, we love having you. Talia, Coren across the socials, Tal? Depending on what you want to give out there?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I believe so. Talia Coren _ I think.
Absolutely. Correct me again. Talia Coren _, please.
Don't forget
Tal,
the underscore, mates.
Don't forget the underscore. Don't forget the underscore. Tal,
Let's
always
do
a pleasure. Thank you so much. Love having you on. You'll be back with us soon. As will the wonderful Ricky J. Norwood. Ricks, it's lovely to have you back on, mate. Thank you as always for finding the time for us. And it's always Ricky J. Norwood across the socials, right, Ricks? Always Ricky J. Norwood across the socials.
Yeah. At Ricky J. Norwood on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, and official Ricky Norwood on Instagram, bro. Always an honor and a pleasure to be on. We've had a great show. It's been great to be on with Talia. Hair's looking good after a long ass day. Good to be on with Georgie Boy with that classy top, bruv. That's a sexy top you got on there, my friend. And Ricky Sacks, slick as ever.
Not as you, brother. Not as you, my man.
And a big thank you to all the fans and the comments and everybody that sends love to this show and to Ricks and everybody on the channel. Always big love, man.
Love back, love for the love. Thank you, guys. Guys, thank you again from George, from Ricks, from Tal, from myself. Again, thank you so much for incredible support for the show. Let's hope we are discussing 3 points come the weekend. But from us all here, guys, keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.